All right, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the State Operations Center. My name is Mark Ghilarducci. I'm the director of the Governor Brown's Governor's Office of Emergency Services. You're here at basically the nerve center for the state's drought response and the drought task force that the governor put in place back in December. In this center behind me here, there are people from various state and federal agencies that are coming together to coordinate activities, to reach out and work with our local governments, our water districts, and our communities to be able to work on the wide range of issues and taskings that were depicted in the governor's state of emergency order, and working very diligently to stay out in front of the drought as it continues to evolve. Joining me here today, we have several state leaders. First, I'd like to recognize Chief Ken Pemlott from CAL FIRE, Director Chuck Bonham from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Undersecretary Sandra Schubert from the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Director Mark Cowan from the California Department of Water Resources, Secretary John Laird from the California Natural Resources Agency. And particularly, it's my honor and pleasure to welcome our state's top leaders to our Operations Center today to speak to you a little bit about what we're doing with the drought and the actions that we're taking. Today, you'll hear from State Senate Pro Tem Steinberg, State Assembly Speaker John Pérez, and of course, the Honorable Governor Jerry Brown. So today we'll begin with Senator Steinberg, who will speak first about actions the legislature is taking. Senator Steinberg.
Thank you very much, Director Ghilarducci, and it is good to be with Governor Brown and Speaker Pérez and all of the state officials here today for this very serious and important announcement. Today it is sunny and 65 degrees again. While most states being pounded with rain and snow are jealous of our winter weather, this year that envy is a two-way street. We need immediate investments, and right now to help lessen the impact of drought on all Californians, our farms, and our environment. And while Congress is locking their ideological horns over the best way to help, so far, nothing to show for it in the process. We can, and we will get something done. We must do what we can with the tools that we have. The best way to help our communities make our communities more resilient to drought is to invest in projects that help us get the most out of every drop of water. Regional and local projects that are ready to go to capture more stormwater, to clean and recycle water, to improve conservation and water use efficiency. This package provides $687 million, most of it in already approved but unappropriated bond funds. And we can get that money out the door and put it to use now. We'll also use it to protect those who are most vulnerable. The bills provide funding for emergency safe drinking water and clean water programs for small and disadvantaged communities. We'll use it to help people who are losing their jobs or having their hours cut because of the drought, financial aid for housing, utility bills, and job training. And we'll use it to help our farmers and ranchers invest in drip irrigation and other techniques to use water, while continuing to put food on tables across the country and the world. We're not waiving environmental laws. We're not hiking fees or taxes. We're using money we have available now to save time, to save water, and to help Californians hardest hit by the drought. This is real action. And I commit to doing our part to get this done and get it done as quickly as possible. It is my privilege and honor to introduce the Speaker of the California State Assembly, the Honorable John A. Pérez.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg. Pleased to join Senator Steinberg and the Governor today as we talk about our plans to respond to California's critical drought. Our state is no stranger to water shortages, but we know that the scale of the crisis we face goes beyond anything we've faced in our lifetime. This is easily one of the worst droughts California has experienced since we began keeping records over a century ago. Communities across the state are already suffering heavily. Nearly 24 cities and towns have reached critically low water reserve levels with less than 100 days of water left on hand. Hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland are being left unplanted because we lack the water to irrigate them. Throughout the state, the haunting images of long submerged structures in our reservoirs exposed to fresh air for the first time in decades have blanketed the front pages of newspapers as the depths of those reservoirs have dropped precipitously. And last month, NASA published a photo taken with satellite imaging showing nothing more than a thin white line in the Sierra Mountain range that a year ago was blanketed with snow. This is truly an unprecedented crisis for California, and we must move swiftly to mitigate the effects that are already unfolding. We're putting together a package, as the Senate President Pro Tem outlined, that will consist of roughly $680 million in state resources for immediate drought relief efforts. And we're continuing our effort to craft a comprehensive, fiscally responsible water bond to go before the voters in November as well. Let me just speak a little bit about the immediate action. We're talking about moving programs that will speed funds for shovel-ready water supply projects, spur water agencies to invest more in efficient strategies and technologies, expand the use of recycled water and stormwater capture projects, provide funding for California Conservation Corps to help with water conservation efforts, water conservation education and outreach, as well as fire fuel reduction needs caused by the drought. This funding will expand employment opportunities for veterans and youth to serve in the Conservation Corps, providing funding for clean drinking water for poor and disadvantaged communities, provide relief including food and rental assistance and job training for those who've been economically disadvantaged by the drought, strengthen state enforcement authorities for those who illegally divert water, and require better monitoring and management of groundwater resources. These are targeted responses that will have tangible results, but we need to be absolutely clear. This is not a problem that can be solved through legislation and investment alone. Every Californian needs to be part of the solution, and we strongly urge every person in our state to take actions to conserve water. But by making the smart use of the $680 million that we're talking about, we can alleviate and prevent some of the worst impacts of the drought. At the same time, we'll be making badly needed improvements on our water system that will benefit California and our economy for years to come. It's important that these actions be taken soon so that we can mitigate the worst effects of the drought, particularly in places like the Central Valley, whose economy continues to struggle and whose economic health is already being hurt by the drought. This situation underscores the critical need for a responsible, forward-looking water bond on the ballot as well in November, and we will work to do that as well. But the immediate relief efforts we're putting forward today should not be caught up or delayed given that discussion. It's an urgent priority for the state, and it is one that we are in the position to make. As is the pro tem, the Assembly is committed to working diligently to get prompt resolution to these issues. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Governor of the state of California.
Unlike a lot of the problems we face here in Sacramento, this is not caused by partisan gridlock or ideology. It's caused by Mother Nature herself. This is serious. Today is a call for action. The state is going to do its part, but we're asking all the citizens to do their part. The state capitol and the state legislators are providing money for drinking water, for housing, for food, and for water-conserving technologies. We're providing money to hire corpsmen in the state California Conservation Corps and in local conservation corps. So this is a time to pull together as Californians first, to rise above a lot of divisions that pull us apart, because we don't know how long this thing is going to last. How serious, how enduring. We know we live in a semi-arid region of the world, and we assume climate, we assume the weather, but now the pattern is being broken. And as I've said many times before, climate change is a fundamental challenge to our way of life. And while scientists will discuss how much of this current drought is due to climate change, it is things like this drought that we will be facing regularly and even intensifying ways over the next years and decades. So it's time we learn how to deal with it. We mobilize our money, our people, our ideas, our technologies, and most of all, our capacity to cooperate. That's what it's about. And as we work through it, we can build a better California because it's one that deals with fundamental values and rises above a lot of the petty bickering that so often characterizes our politics. So with that, we'll take some questions.
Governor, how soon would you like to see this assistance out the door and actually helping people, this package?
Well, as quick as,
Within a couple of weeks?
well, I defer to our legislative leaders
Yes.
on that, but a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks.
We all think we can get it done within the next couple of weeks.
We're going to expedite the process. We're going to get the money through.
If this is such an unprecedented crisis that all three of you are saying, why don't we order mandatory water rationing? Why are we just leaving it up to the local?
Look, this is a call to action. We're going to take it step by step, and each week we review where we are. But what needs to be done will be done, and is being done.
Governor, is there any concern that Californians are immune to these types of warnings because over time, we've gotten a lot of them before?
Well, we'll be less immune as we go forward. So this is real. Most of the problems we deal with were created by other human beings. This is built into the very nature of reality itself. And so this has a power, a stark reality that's going to get all of our collective attention. And whatever our thought patterns have been in the past, they are going to be restructured in the coming months and years as we deal with this reality that still some wish to deny.
But I think if you, let me answer that question before we get to the next one. People are not immune to this. This is a crisis that is real in the lives of Californians up and down the state. Clearly in the Central Valley and in the inland portions of the state, it is absolutely palpable when you go into communities. When you see the visit that the governor and the president made to the Central Valley this past week and the number of lives that have been impacted, people in the state are not callous to the crisis that we're facing. And this really is unprecedented, and our response will be up to the challenge as well.
I'm wondering whether the governor and Senator Steinberg agree with Mr. Speaker's
Always.
statement about
Take it at that.
plan indeed next question to work with the water bond on the November ballot. Mr. Speaker said we're going to go forward and try to.
You go first. Me
Go
too.
ahead, let you fellas go, and I'll tell you what I think.
This is a little dangerous here, but I agree completely with the speaker. Look, this bond, this work that we're putting forward today, these funds, build upon the 2009 water package. The different water bond. The 2009 water bond, which was the product of very difficult negotiations, is admittedly too large. We have the opportunity to not only bring down the size, but also to update it because it's 5 years later. And we've got lead members on in both houses. And we're hard at work at reconciling what I think are minor differences, actually, between the two House versions. And the Speaker and I will work closely together to do all we can to move this forward. Why not take advantage of, appropriately, of this moment in time? This is the moment in time where the people are paying attention, and we need the water investment.
If I, just to tee up the governor, though. So, but here's the idea. There's the immediacy of the crisis. There's the immediacy of the crisis that we're responding to and we're talking about today.
Right.
Then there is a long-term structured approach, which is the basis for the bond that the two houses will negotiate. And it is our job to produce a bond that the governor will be happy to see on the ballot.
Good.
I think he's...
Pardon me? I think you heard it. They're working away, and whenever you have this thrust in the legislature, you can be sure that results will follow.
Is this going to get anybody any water this year or next year?
Yes.
Yes. First,
Yes.
Why don't we ask our waterman here? I like it when the material always goes for the technical question. No. Mr. Waterman, you want
It's
to...
technically obvious.
I'm Mark Cowan, Director of the Department of Water
Can you
Resources.
actually write a substantive kind of report here on it?
Okay,
That's Ross's job.
so let me point out that the programs that this bill would fund already exist within the Department of Water Resources. So our job will be to expedite funding, to focus on shovel-ready projects that can be implemented as quickly as possible. And we know there are projects out there that are ready to be funded. Every year when we run our grant programs, we're always oversubscribed in terms of the amount of requests we get versus the amount of money that we can allocate and then match with local cost share. So this really drives local investment. I want to make that point. It will obviously be able to make water available by next year. Projects that go into construction
Can you give
this
me a
year.
couple examples? What's the most immediate water that will result from the actions that are being taken?
Well, water recycling plants that are ready to be implemented, or water conservation programs in the South Coast that are just waiting for funding to be implemented. Anything that requires a construction period, obviously that's going to take a year or two, but all the better to prepare us for an extended dry period.
But also, you're allowing water to be, another thing you're allowing water to be transferred.
That's right.
That otherwise would not be allowed to be transferred unless we change the rules.
That's
Especially
right.
for the
That's
community.
right. That was part of the Drought proclamation, a request to the state board to implement a joint point of use or a consolidated point of use between the state project and the federal project. We have produced that petition to the state board, waiting for their order, and that will free up the ability to transfer water between those
So
two
people
projects.
who don't need it as much will be able to sell it to those people who do.
Precisely.
So that does add water to where it doesn't exist.
Any other questions, Mr. Mc-
And if you, would you talk about the ability to deliver water to the communities that are going to be without water within 100 days? That's the direct water delivery.
This is our prep
effort as
session
well.
for the
Do you want to respond to that, Mark? Sure.
Willits.
Monday.
So part of the Governor's Drought Task Force is to work very diligently with all the local governments to assess where they're at on their levels of water, any vulnerabilities. And as those communities identify problems, we want to be proactive, and we've been working like we have done in Willits to be able to put water delivery systems. In the case of Willits, we actually worked through a grant to put a pipeline in place to deliver water from where it was located to where it was needed. And we will do that throughout the state as these communities come up on our radar screen and we identify that they need those resources, and we'll act very expeditiously to do that.
Why were these projects, if these projects were, as you said, just waiting for funding, if this $680-something million was already available, why hadn't it been allocated earlier?
These dollars, I know, were part of the governor's January budget, and really what we are doing here is saying, let's not wait until June in the budget. Let's appropriate these dollars now so they can get out that much earlier.
There's actually there's another complicating issue here. In previous years, as a result of the budget crisis, some of those who were in charge of evaluating and moving some of these monies were actually furloughed, and so project review was delayed. So the reality that we're back in strong economic footing allows us to move forward with the evaluation, and as the Senate President Pro Tem has identified, even expedite that which we're looking to do through this year's budget.
Governor, could you briefly talk about the federal action, the federal proposals? I mean, there's a Feinstein-Boxer plan that you sent a letter, said you support.
Yeah, I do.
But you also oppose the majority party's plan in Washington. Can you talk about why one is better than the other? What's the distinction?
Feinstein and Boxer are the majority party. It's just different houses.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, look, the Feinstein-Boxer bill responds to the problem, but doesn't ignite water wars between North and Southern California. We have to keep working together this year and in years to come. So efforts to strip away protections that are deeply wanted and valued by significant sectors of California is not a way to build the unity and to rise above the narrow partisanship. So it actually is self-defeating. So that's what the other bill that was put out. And it came from a strange source. That one of those fellows said 97% of the world's climate scientists don't know what the hell they're talking about. This is from a fellow who, I don't know what his grades were in climate science, but it was pretty bad.
Even the Feinstein-Boxer bill allows some new flexibility
It does.
in water transfer, which some Democrats from the California delegation don't like.
Exactly, but we don't have unanimity, but we have consensus, at least with the Boxer Feinstein bill. So it's more prudent. If enacted, it will keep us moving forward. The other one is just a formula for breakdown and stalemate, emblematic of too much of what goes on in Washington.
Governor, will any of these shovel-ready projects actually increase the supply of water immediately?
Yeah, the water will be increased through water recycling, through other programs of people not using water wastefully, and therefore more water being made available for water that's needed. And then when you can actually get a little more time under your belt, you can actually build some actual recycling plants, which through reverse osmosis and other technologies convert water that you can't use like wastewater, into water that you can. And so there's many ways that we can better use the water that we have. And you can't manufacture water. You can desalinate it, or you can capture it and store it, and you can move it. But within those constraints, that's exactly what we're doing.
What about increasing water storage capacity?
That's important, but of course, storage takes a long time,
And that's part of the bond discussion.
and that's part of the bond.
Governor, how significant a savings is there? I mean, can you quantify how much water you're going to save?
I can't quantify it. Maybe one of our water experts can. I'll tell you this, the more we save, the better it is, because we don't know when it's going to rain. Or if it does rain, we don't know how long it's going to rain, and therefore we really don't know how bad the drought is going to be over the next year or two or three going into the future. So we want to prudently take all the steps that we can, but looking at it every week to see, do we have to up the ante in terms of conservation, in terms of investment, in terms of moving water from one place to another.
What about
We've gotta wrap up here.
a lot of water by putting a ban on fracking?
That wouldn't save very much water. Do you know how much that would save?
Can you tell me?
Well, you're asking the
I
question.
mean, they as much water as San Francisco uses in a year.
That-
Impossible.
Highly dubious. Look, we have put in place serious scientific analysis and study going forward to look at the water use, to look at all the impacts, and we'll act on the basis of those studies. But in the immediate situation, I don't think that's going to be a source that will help people throughout the state.